There are a lot of questions off the back of this reduction in the amount of points Everton have had taken off. So we chat now, as we often do on Football Finance. The football finance expert, lecturer at Liverpool University, from the excellent Prices Football podcast with Kevin Day. Kieran Maguire joins us. Good afternoon, Kieran.
Afternoon, guys. How are we doing?
Hello, Kieran.
Good, thank you. I mean, this seemed to be the expectation. I mean, most people have been saying for the last few weeks, well, it will probably get reduced to 6. I mean, is that how you felt all along?
Yes, I think when the initial verdict was made by the Commission, the general feeling was that, yes, Everton had probably breached the limits, but a 10-point sanction, especially given that the Premier League only has 38 games compared to 46 in the EFL, felt disproportionate. And that appears to form much of the basis for the reduction, along with the second commission saying that there was too much emphasis played on Everton being, and I quote, less than frank with some of their submissions. The job of an accountant is to reduce profits for tax purposes. That's their job. Well, it's exactly the same in terms of Everton's team.
Scott in Worcester has a question, Kieran. He says, as the Commission have acknowledged that the EFL guidelines should be the benchmark, they include double jeopardy, which means in that case, Everton don't have a second charge to answer. Is this right, Kieran?
I'm not a lawyer, would be the first thing to say, but I think what you could say with a reasonable degree of confidence is that if Everton are going to be assessed over a second 3-year period, and 2 of those years overlap, then whatever judgment is made by the second commission should be reduced by 2/3. So if they give a further 3 points deduction, we say, well, you've already got an outstanding offence for which you're being punished, so therefore we'll reduce that 3 to 1 or a 6 to 2 and so on.
Sorry. Yeah. Do you think going forward, Kieran, that because Everton admitted it, then there's Nottingham Forest obviously got their charges coming up. Man City is different, isn't it? Because that's not necessarily on the PSR rules, for 105 million over 3 years. But do you think this is going to make clubs be more liable to actually admit that they've got it wrong and then admit that they're guilty, just to speed it up a bit quicker?
I think it gives certainty for all parties. And we saw in respect of Everton's initial case in October that they initially said that they didn't feel that a points deduction was appropriate, but then they sort of effectively came round to say that, yes, they breached the limits. There's always a case for saying that if there is if going forwards, being proactive can be to your benefit. We saw that with Birmingham City in the EFL. They self-reported themselves. We saw that with Milan in UEFA in 2019. They had a 2-year ban reduced to 1 and so on. So we've already seen the impact as far as the transfer market is concerned and a slowdown in terms of wage increases. I think clubs are very aware that the Premier League is taking this seriously and they can't afford to be fast and loose with the rules.
Do we know the actual figures involved in the circumstances of these PSR breaches, that the second set against Everton and the ones that have been levelled at Forest, Kieran? Do we know what they are specifically?
No, we've not. I'd love to have managed to get hold of the email sent in by both Forest and Everton, which set out their accounts. So I think the challenge we've got is that there's an awful lot of conjecture at present with regards to how much Forest spent on transfers that's counted for PSR purposes, and also their wage bill for 22-23. The same goes for Everton, but certainly the direction of travel as far as Everton is concerned, they were certainly had put the brakes on, whereas in the case of Forest, they were accelerating because they were in the Premier League and they were trying to survive in the Premier League.
And the time frame for this, it's taken 3.5 months from the initial 10-point deduction to this appeal and it being reduced to 6. I mean, can this be sped up? Because obviously we don't want a situation, as we've been saying earlier on in the show, where the season's over and then people are being deducted points afterwards. Can they not speed up the time between the initial charge and the appeal?
I think it's a case for saying that having been through the process once, the commission, the prosecution and the defence team all now know what works, and therefore that could speed up the process. It's also not fair, not just on Forest and Everton, but you've mentioned Rob Edwards from Luton and the other clubs who are potentially in that zone as well. They don't know going into the last few matches of the season, should we be trying to get just a point today? Is it essential we get a win? And if the appeals take place after the end of the season, well, as far as a transfer policy is concerned, the clubs are already starting to recruit. Clubs are already starting to work out which players are not going to have renewed contracts. So there's huge implications for the whole of the Premier League as far as that's concerned, because if you think you've now been relegated, you budget, that could mean loss of jobs for backroom staff. It certainly is an impact on players in terms of their bonuses and so on. So it becomes very, very messy.
You think as well, Kieran, obviously this is the financial side, and we've had managers, obviously, Rob Edwards saying, Spirit Sanders saying, it's nothing to do with me, that's finances and accountancy. But I think more clubs now are going to get their recruitment and tighten up on their recruitment, because you look at Everton, most of their problems come from all the money that they wasted when Marcel Brands was obviously the sporting director, paying over the odds for players that weren't good enough.
And massive wages.
So that's why the knock-on effect goes on to the profit and sustainability rules. You look at Brighton, you look at Brentford, who are brilliantly well run on the recruitment side, and that obviously helps then the financial side.
Yes, it's a virtuous circle, and it's a vicious circle. Again, looking at I've been through all 61 pages of the Commission's ruling, and Everton said, wouldn't it be better if we were given a transfer ban rather than a points deduction? And that's sort of the response of the Commission was, well, you're wanting us to stop you from signing poor players. So clearly we're not prepared to go down that route. So we will see a lot more caution being made in the transfer market as a result of this, because we know that there's genuine repercussions for getting it wrong.
Good stuff, Kieran. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks very much.
Kieran.
Cheers, guys.
There's Kieran Maguire there from Liverpool University, football finance expert, and his podcast, demystifying the world of football finance. Kieran and Kevin Day, the comedian and Palace fan, do that in their weekly podcast, The Price is Football. An excellent listen. As more emerges, we will bring it to you. This is coming from one of the Luton fans. He said, not great news for us. We didn't want to rely on points deductions anyway, but this, I think, will upset the mood in the camp. It's true. No. We've heard all the managers saying nothing to do with us, but as you've said, players will look at the league table. They'll suddenly see Everton sort of climb above them, and it will have an impact.
You do, yeah, it will do. But I think Luton are a really unique case. I've been lucky enough to be at Kenilworth Road a couple of times this season, and that is the club that is totally together. From the owners to the manager to the players, and they knew that it was going to be a tough ask for them to stay in the Premier League anyway. Yeah, but they're making a proper fist of it in the way they perform. You look at Burnley and Sheffield United, have gone. They're relegated. There's been not enough quality there, not enough fight. No, Luton have. They've got the fight, they've got the spirit, they've got quality with obviously Ross Barkley, who's been playing brilliantly well on the pitch. Adebayo up front has been brilliant. Carlton Morris has been very, very good as well. Alfie Dowdge on the left-hand side. So I think whilst, you would look at it, but I don't think that's going to make any difference at all to that mood and that spirit in the Luton camp. I think that is quite unique, what we've got there at the minute.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.